Welcome to another edition of Inspiring Life Journeys, where we have conversations with everyday people on their journey of life, their ups and downs, and what they've learned and what they can share with us. Today, we have a really an interesting guest who you're not going to want to miss. He's a cybersecurity expert. And before we bring him on, just a little bit intro about what our show is about. So, hi, Scott.
Hi, Shanta.
Welcome
How are you?
to today's show. I'm so glad to have you here, and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, Scott, I'm going to read the introduction that you gave me because I just don't want to miss anything that's so important. I know you as a person, I know you a little bit about your company, but I was impressed on your background and what you have to offer to our guest today. So I'm going to start off by just reading your intro. So Scott Schneider is not your typical cybersecurity expert. He has the extraordinary ability to explain complex technical concepts and risks without all the technobabble. I love that word. Using plain English, real life stories, and a generous dose of humor, which keeps his audiences engaged and entertained. He's a recognized speaker, author, podcaster, and the creator of Tech Advice, brand cybersecurity trainer for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and corporations who need a trusted ally in the fight against cybersecurity bullies. With over 35 years of hands-on and executive experience in the information technology, privacy, and security arena, Scott is able to provide actionable answers to today's cybersecurity business challenges in an undeniably entertaining and impactful way. He has met the bad guys head on. He's engaging, charismatic, and full of energy. I've known Scott for a few years, and he's that and so much more. He's the only cybersecurity expert who enlightens you to the risks of the online world, provides actionable steps you can take to better protect yourself and your business, all the while keeping his audiences engaged as well as informed. Scott, you say that organizations don't need more work or more scary stories. They need privacy, security, and peace of mind. Oh, Scott, there you are. I'm so sorry. Somehow you went off stream, but that's where you were supposed to be on all along.
No problem. No problem.
Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
You hit it over there that we really need privacy, security, and peace of mind. So that's what everybody's looking for. But your journey, our show is all about your life journey, and we get molded right from the time we are young to the time we are here today. So if you don't mind, I'm going to touch back on a little bit about you growing up, where you grew up, your life in your early childhood years, and then we'll move on to your college and your professional career. So tell us a little bit about your childhood years and
okay, great.
Like growing up.
Yeah, so basically I was born in San Antonio, Texas, and just to throw in a little cybersecurity tip here, that will never be one of my secret questions anywhere where I was born. We'll talk about that later, about you should always tell a lie. But basically, born in San Antonio, my folks were in the Air Force. They met each other there, and that began 7 years. My father worked on military contracts. He was not in the military at the time, but we lived all over the world. We lived in California, like both coasts, New Mexico, Hawaii, Australia. We lived in Perth, Australia for about 6 months on a project, and then came back to California, and pretty much my mom put her foot down, and we put our roots down in Southern California. So I grew up just outside of Long Beach in a town called Los Alamitos, and that's where most of my childhood was spent. And I've pretty much, except for the 7 years and being born somewhere else, pretty much an Orange County, California native. So this is home.
And what was it in your school years? Did you have any aspirations as what who you want to become when you grow up, or what was it like then?
Absolutely, yeah. So totally different. From the time I was 7 years old, I wanted to be a doctor. And my mom was a nurse. She worked in labor and delivery. And my father, some of his projects dealt with hospitals. So I wanted to be a doctor. And then in 1969, a great thing happened. Dr. Christian Bernard, who's a South African
Hmm.
surgeon, had the first successful heart transplant. And I remember being at the grocery store with my mom, and they used to have all the magazines back when they had print magazines. All
Hmm.
the magazines were by the check stand, and the Life magazine was there with on the cover was Dr. Bernard and a nurse and the patient. And I decided to take some of my allowance and spend the awesome sum of 35 cents in those days to buy the magazine and read. I read it, reread it, and decided that at that point I wanted to be a heart surgeon. So I kind of went through junior high school and high school wanting to be a heart surgeon, and that was a love of my life, where I wanted to go. Um, and went into college with that aspiration that I would be going into pre-med and then medical school and then specialization.
And what was your college years like? When did you realize that that wasn't what you wanted to do? All of us have those life moments, right? When we realize that's not what your life passion is.
Yeah, exactly. So my first year of college, I went in, and I knew it was going to be a challenge to pay for school. Even in California at that time, we had great universities, and they weren't. It wasn't like the name universities that were so expensive. I was the first person in my family to attend a college.
Mm.
And so I missed out on, I wasn't aware of, and therefore missed out on some of the deadlines and some of the other things. Even though scholastically I had prepared for school, basically, like, I was a little too late on the mark to apply for certain scholarships and to apply at certain universities. So I decided to go to community college, and got into school and learned from life, kind of what the costs are. And even there with the books, and I was taking biology and chemistry and all these other things that the books were very, very expensive, I remember. And there was tuition and other things. And I just, after the end of my first year, I sat down and kind of took a look at the checkbook and took a look at my aspirations and thought the two are not matching up. So at 19 years old, I basically was able to determine that I probably was not going to be able to go to medical school. Even finishing college was going to be a challenge. And so kind of a panic, there's actually today on the news, there's a young lady who's just graduated college. She's on TikTok, and she's talking about some of her fears that, now she's out of college. Now what? And that's kind of where I was.
Mhm.
I was still in college. Is I'm not going to be a doctor. Now what?
Mhm.
So there were two things I could do well. One of them was lab work, and the other was computer programming, which I learned in high school. And one of them needed a degree and one of them didn't need a degree. So I actually went and worked in the mailroom of a company here in Southern California and introduced myself to at that time it was called data processing department,
Mhm.
and went up and did work and shifted around, went to school at night. So I worked a full-time job during the day, went to school at night, and shifted my major to business administration. And then as I went into my upper level courses, you needed to declare your major. And I learned that the language of business is accounting. And so even though I had no plans or no desire to ever be an accountant, nothing against accountants here, I
Mhm.
declared an accounting major and actually learned a lot about the courses and things like that. My major was in accounting. After that, when you graduate as an accounting major, you go and you talk to the accounting firms. At that time, there were the big eight. Now there's four. But you go and you talk to them, and they were like, that's where the cream of the cream went. So my chances of getting in were slim. Um, I didn't have the grades that they were looking for. They were looking for the 4.0 students, and I didn't have the activities because I went to school at night. So it's very difficult to be in student activities and the other things that they looked for.
Mhm.
I had to market myself as a professional. I actually kind of came in the side door, not as a college student, but as someone who was a computer programmer working those few years, and was very, very fortunate that one of the big 8 firms brought me on board. So now I'm in IT auditing,
Mhm.
which was a total accident. I didn't even know it existed at the time. And basically it's 2 things I could do well. Is I had the accounting background and the auditing background. I like to dig in and find how things work. So I was a great auditor, and then I had the computer skills. So the technology was not foreign to me, which it is to a lot of financial people. And I was very, very successful at the company. And then kind of fast forward through the rest of the 35, 40 years of my career, I kind of went back and forth. That's called compliance work or security work. I kind of went back and forth between being a technologist and working all over the world, uh, working on systems and leading teams and being a chief information officer at a couple of our European startups for a company I worked at, to basically going back into compliance work. And my career is probably 50-50 technology and 50-50 compliance and everything, which led me into information security
Mm.
eventually, because compliance
Mhm.
and security, they go hand in hand. They're not the same thing. You can be compliant and insecure, and you can be secure and not compliant. So, but basically, have been very fortunate to navigate through uncertain economic times and huge changes in technology that have taken place during that time frame, and just very fortunate to have both skill sets.
Yeah, that is a great asset to have both of them. Like you said, they both are needed, but they don't, you know, they are so, kind of not dependent on each other, but you do need to have both components to have a successful business. And with all the changes that keep happening, every little thing that happens affects not only your technology, but how compliant you are to make those when all those changes occur.
That's true. It's huge. And the amount of money that companies spend on compliance, the basically something bad happens and then laws come in to protect people. So, the biggest one, that another shift out of technology and back into compliance was back in the early 2000s, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which of course came because of Enron, the Enron
Mhm.
fiasco, and a couple other, there's a health company down in Alabama. And so, basically the authorities at the Securities and Exchange Commission and other places said we have to protect people and their investments. And so, again, the shift kind of went back to compliance, and a lot of it was not only on the financial processes that typical accountants would take care of, but a lot of it was in technology and making sure that the right safeguards were in place to ensure that the financial information could not be altered and that it was presented fairly. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah, I recall in my prior, when I was in corporate world, I was in the health insurance field. And when they brought up the HIPAA policies and the compliance, that was a huge thing that we took tremendous amount of time and effort and find resources to put to make sure that all the health information was protected. And that's so important that not only in big businesses, but information protected in small businesses too, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Actually, a lot of, I'm glad you brought that up, Shanta, because,
Mhm.
basically where my heart is for small businesses, for entrepreneurs, for senior citizens, which I guess
Mhm.
I'm very close to myself now. But, it's people that don't see themselves as targets. They don't, I have a presentation that I give, and, if you'd allow me just a quick story.
Sure.
I'm a scuba diver, so
Mhm.
I went scuba diving back in 2016. I went to an island off of Mexico called Guadalupe Island. And if you ever
Mhm.
watch Shark Week on the Discovery Channel, they always do stuff out at Guadalupe Island. And so you jump in the water. It's nice blue water. There's some seals on shore and stuff like that, but there's nothing there's nothing, there's not a bad feeling. If you look at the water, there's nothing about the water or the fish or anything else that would give you a problem. And you're inside a cage because we know that there's sharks there, but all of a sudden out of the shadows, these huge great white sharks come out.
Wow.
And they're 20 feet long. That is not an exaggeration. These are big animals. And as long as they are, they're also, probably 3 of me, and I'm not a little guy, stacked up, so these are big animals. And it just occurred to me while I was under there that there is nothing outwardly, looking at the water and the environment, stuff like that, that would ever give me a clue with my scuba diving, 20 years of scuba diving experience, would ever give me a clue that there was that kind of danger there. And that's the way it is for a lot of small business owners and other people that are on, actually anybody who's on the internet, it's the cyber sea, and there are sharks out there, and they are not just college kids messing around in their dorm room. Cybercrime is tremendously profitable. And so you're going to have organized crime. You're going to have nation states that are involved in stealing your information and your secrets. And they really don't care. This is the bully part of it is they could mess up your business. Shant, I know you have a business, and you have everything you do is on your computer, and if your computer is not backed up properly, or if it's not protected properly, you could lose your whole business in a ransomware attack that locks up your files or corrupts your files. And these are people's livelihoods that are at stake, and it's their paycheck, and it's so much work to build the business. So this is really where my heart lies, is kind of just talking to people that don't think they're targets but are still swimming in the sea about, you may want to get a shark cage, and there's a few things you can do there.
That's a great way to think about that, Scott. And it's so true. There are sharks just like the ones that you encountered in the water. There are cyber sharks all over the place, and they don't attack just businesses, right? They attack kids, just everyday people who don't have businesses, and as well as, like you touched on, seniors. Those are really important areas that we need to protect. We're going to go into some of the things that you can help teach and provide to people, just a little bit about in some of those areas which you think that people need to know.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is, and I used to tell my last position was a chief information security officer at a local bank here in Orange County. And I always told my employees, the employees of the bank, don't be helpful. Our tendency as human beings, most human beings are really, really nice people, and we want to help. And we, for the most part, like people, maybe not on the freeway, but here in Southern California. Most people want to be helpful, and they want to offer information, or they want to be involved. And some of those things, it doesn't mean that you have to be isolated or mean or anything like that. But I would say be skeptical, be much more skeptical about things. If you get, there's 3 kinds of what's called social engineering attacks. And these people are very, very good at it. I'm going to digress a little bit. People that do Ponzi schemes like Bernie Madoff and others that are like that, they used to be called confidence men back in the day, and it's because they build a confidence with you, and they have an easy style, and the way that they think and their lack of a moral compass allows them to navigate and allows them to think in ways that people that are, tend to be honest and helpful and whatever, which is probably most of us, we don't think that way. It's like, we would never think about doing things. I'm reading a book right now about the Theranos company up in the Bay Area, and there was a lot of deception that was proven that was going on from the management of the company. And yet some very, very sophisticated people that were on their board of directors or executives of some of the pharmaceutical companies and some of the drugstores, got taken in by it. So it's nothing. I guess that's what I would say is, be skeptical, but then also don't feel embarrassed if you fell prey to this, because these people are really, really good at what they do. So I touched on kind of the three things. The three social engineering is phishing, smishing, and vishing. And phishing is basically spelled with a PH.
Mm-hmm.
Is basically emails that you get, and I know you all get them, and they're getting better. They're getting harder to look at, but it's like, click on this link, or, we don't have your credit card information. Go ahead and let us, you have to update your credit card information. So click on the link. And so I'm sure you've all seen those. Smishing is the same type of things, but with text messages, SMS messages. And it's the exact same type of thing where you click on the SMS link, and usually it'll redirect you somewhere, and it'll say, I need your personal information, I need your credit card, I need your kid's name, or something like that. And then the third part is vishing, which is voice phishing. And that is where, the phone calls you're getting at home, and seniors get a lot of the vishing type attacks, where it's like, hi, it's the IRS, and we'll put you in jail. And, or it's the electric company, and we're going to shut you off, if you don't do things. And all of these are just ways they try to strike fear in you. There's always a sense of urgency that they try to create. You have to do this now, or something's going to happen. My advice is to take 3 breaths and basically go an independent way to validate and verify what it is they're saying. So for instance, if a credit card company says they don't have your stuff on file, get the back of your credit card out, call up the number on that credit card, or their posted web address that is valid, and give their fraud department a call, or someone else, and say, hey, I got this call, and you guys need my updated information. And I'll bet you 9 times out of 10 they say, we never called you.
Mm-hmm.
The vishing for seniors really make me angry, because they are vulnerable. Seniors and children are both vulnerable. I would say to parents, know what your kids do online. If you have parental controls on your internet, which most of the internet service providers offer, make sure that those are engaged, that you know not only how much time your kids are spending online, but also where they're going and what they're doing, and block certain things. Make sure they don't get a hold of your credit card. There've been a couple of parents that have been surprised by credit cards. But and then, like I say, older people, they try to strike fear that things are going to happen. One that's friends of mine that basically they told them that their grandchildren were being held hostage, and that they had to send money to a certain place, wire money, or the grandchildren would be harmed. And nowadays with you sit there and you go, well, I don't think I would ever fall prey to that. But when you're in the position, once again, it's urgency, it's fear, and you're not taking time. It's your grandchild, or it's your child, and so you're not going to behave rationally. And I would say, just even in those times, take time, call your local police department. They usually have someone, either a separate cyber department for the larger departments, or sometimes they have experts in the smaller departments, and talk to them about it. The FBI has a cyber, most of the areas have a cyber branch, and so I'd say talk to them. But just like you say, just take 3 breaths and don't be manipulated. Don't give information out. And that's even things that, entering sweepstakes. I get emails every day. It's like, we need your email address, and we need your, Google bothers me constantly because they want my birth date. I'm not going to give anybody my birth date. I talked with you earlier about lying. I call it this, when I give speeches, the cyber George Washington. I always tell a lie. And what I mean by that is, for the secret questions, and when you have those things, make up something consistent. So like, because with legacy.com and Ancestry and all the rest of those, it's just too easy to find out the truth. So I told you I was born in San Antonio, Texas. I guarantee you my secret question for what city you were born in is not San Antonio question. It might, or Texas, it might be London, England. It might be, I make up lies, and they're consistent. I know what they are, but they're all lies. They're all my secret questions. So that would be that would be some tips I have.
That's a good point, Scott. Never thought of that. I'm sure a lot of us have, you including, have given just the real questions. Is there something that someone can do if they want to change that and be consistent?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I guess the first thing I would do is what I did personally. I sat down and kind of went through all the secret questions, and then made a little list off on the side. It's in a secured file now, so I have it. I can refer to it. But I basically made up the questions and then came up with answers. So, what was your first make and model of your car? And if you think about it, there's only so many makes and only so many models, and probably there's, like I say, these guys are so smart. What they do, they can actually run through a database and hack away at your secret questions. So come up with things that aren't obvious, and aren't findable about you, and then and keep those safe and use them consistently so you can remember them, just like you do your real. Like, I know I was born in San Antonio, Texas. But if my data or my place of birth, my fake one, is London, England, which it's not, but if I said that, it's always London, England. My car is always Chevy Chevelle. My favorite color is something probably from the crayon box, the one where you get 128 colors. So it's something obscure, and that's what I would say.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. That's a really good point. And is there anything specific that's going on really rampantly right now, or you've seen in the past couple of years that people have over and over again fallen prey to?
Oh boy. Yeah, we don't learn. So the reason I smile a little bit, Shanta, is every day I have about, I don't know, a half dozen feeds from various cybersecurity companies and sources, including the FBI. And there are scams every day that come up. There are breaches every day that come up. There was one last week using a file utility that a lot of the federal government uses. It's a commercially available utility that moves large amounts of data between different databases at companies and in the government. And it had a big vulnerability in it that was taken advantage of, where people could go in, outside people, if they had access, could go in and grab the data while it's being transferred. So that is your real information. And so that just happened last week. It's huge, and it was but there's ransomware, people that get locked up. A lot of smaller businesses will get hit with ransomware. I would say for small businesses, just a couple of things. Make sure you have anti-malware, either antivirus, or I have two, that I use. They're both based on different things. But make sure you do that. That you don't use the free versions of them. A lot of times those, there's a saying on the internet that if you don't buy the product, you are the product. And so, and sometimes there have been some allegations in the past that some of the free software that you got, especially for anti-malware, was actually was malware itself. And so just be careful. Go ahead and pay the money and buy the correct licenses. Buy the number that you need. Most of us have different devices. I have a desktop, I have a laptop, and then everybody has, I'm sure, one of these computers here. That this had better have antivirus on it. It had better have a firewall. I'll talk a little bit. I'll give you a chance to ask a question, but we'll talk about Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi, and virtual private networks. But these are all things you should back up your files. That's actually kind of what got me started with small businesses. Is my neighbor is a soils engineer and he works from home. It's a home-based business. He's very successful. But I asked him one time if I said, are your files all backed up? What do you do with all your studies and all the rest of that? He says, I don't know. It's on my hard drive. And, I said, yeah, but if you got, if something was corrupted or something like that, or because it could just be a hardware failure, it may not even be a bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't backing up his data. And I said, what would happen if you lost your computer right now? And he said, I'd be out of business. That would be it. Think about people that their whole business is on their laptop and they take their laptop to a convention or a seminar. And then, what do you do at lunch? Oh, you leave everything there and you go have lunch and you come back, and some of the hotels have gotten better about their security right now, but there used to be that there would people that it was Anderson Consulting. They were having a seminar and people came in during lunch hour, and I think 30 or 40 laptops got stolen, right out of the room. So, that's kind of common sense. You wouldn't leave $1,000 in cash on the table. Don't leave your laptop on the table. Make sure it's backed up for a number of different reasons. So backups are real important. There's all sorts of resources that are available for backup. Carbonite is one, and there's several other cloud backup organizations that you can buy subscriptions to. And you're going to spend several $100s a year on the malware and the VPN and all the rest of it. But that beats having to restart your business.
Right. It's so worth it to put that investment in so that you don't have to suffer later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be careful with free software. It's just it's really free is not always good for a lot of different reasons. And then kind of talking about software and talking about these guys here, these cell phones. Be careful of the apps that you download. There's an app for that. There's an app for everything. I am a very technical person, but my friends say I'm in the Stone Age when it comes to things. My family, my nephews and things like that. And they're like, I have a bike helmet that has a microphone in it, so I can talk to people I'm riding with and stuff like that. And there's an app that runs that from the manufacturer, and I will download it just to ride, and then I uninstall it as quickly as I can when I get done, after several days of riding or whatever, because I just don't trust the app. It's got, if you do some research on it, it's got some issues, and I don't think there's anything the manufacturer is doing nefariously, but there are nefarious apps out there, and they make it past the screening on Google Play, and there's 20 or 30 a week that I get a newsletter about that talks about these are bad apps if you have them, and they're things like flashlight apps or QR code apps. Oh, we can talk about QR codes. As you can see, you could kind of any rabbit trail with cybersecurity. But just be very, very careful about the apps you download, and look at the permissions that your app, most of it is just like, oh yeah, I just want it, but we need these permissions, and everybody goes, yep, go ahead and take whatever you want. There's no reason for you should be questioning, why does a restaurant app need my contact information? Or why does it need access to my microphone? You want to be real careful with those things. Because otherwise your phone can turn into a spy against you and can be used. It's a computer, and a lot of people don't realize, they don't think about it that way.
Yeah, that's a good point, Scott, because I didn't think about, installing malware on your phone. A lot of them, like you said, we just say, okay, they ask for permission, and we just say, okay, that's needed, but not really questioning it.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. You just, and, there's certain things, I've found cool apps that I look at and I feel that the permissions are um, too much and not reasonable for at least my understanding of what they need to operate. And so I just won't download them, and does it make things a little inconvenient sometimes, or, I don't get the coolest app or whatever. Yeah, there's those, but I'd rather have that than have to deal with all of a sudden I have spyware on my phone when I do my banking or something like that.
Mhm.
It has my passwords and things like that. So, you try to find the middle ground, but I would say just be careful, be skeptical, take 3 breaths. That's a big, you'll hear me say that over and over again. Is just sit and think about it. But most of us, we're so busy with life, and it's just like, you're at dinner and it's like, oh, there's this cool app about, for wine and cheese and stuff, and you got to get it. And you're at dinner and you download it. You go, oh, this really is cool, but you didn't notice that it has a lot of permissions and things like that. Speaking of dinner, we talked about QR codes.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, the biggest thing when you went to restaurants and other places, they didn't want to pass out menus. So they had the QR codes on the table, and there was a lot of outside dining. For QR codes, make sure you know where that code is going to. Probably your restaurants are okay. I always feel to see if there's a sticker on top of, if someone put a fake QR code, because basically that does a redirect from your phone out to a website somewhere, and hopefully it's the restaurant's website, and you're going to get the menu, right? But it could be going out to a bad guy's website that will still give you the menu, but will basically download bad stuff onto your phone.
Wow.
So
Hmm.
you have to be careful with QR codes, and don't just. I see people walking around all the time and using them. They're a great tool. Technology is a two-edged sword, right? It's a great tool. It makes life easier and more convenient and stuff like that. But like I said, if I have any suspicion, I won't use a QR code. In restaurants, I ask, my nephews make fun of me, I ask for paper menus again.
Yeah.
Because I just don't, I want to kind of keep as many doors to my technical life closed as possible, because it's
Mhm.
too easy to get in, and then once they're in, it's too easy to stay in. So
Good point. Good point, Scott. You mentioned something about a sticker. So are people in putting a sticker on top of a valid QR code to redirect the information to them?
absolutely, yep, that's exactly how it works. Is you make, you can get free QR printers out on the internet. So I just make a QR code. And when it comes up, most people don't look at what it says, at what the link says, or the link doesn't even make any sense, right? It's
Hmm.
just, and so, and what do you do? It's like, go ahead and execute the thing. So I could have it go, instead of, to restaurant.com, I could have it go to badguy.com. And like I say, once it comes to me and it comes to my server, I basically, have a link to your phone. I can upload or download what I want, and
Mm.
I'll still give you the menu, because I don't want you to suspect me. But that's just one example. So trade shows are big with QR codes. You have to, and I know you're in travel, so just be careful with the QR codes. I usually will just use the URLs and type the stuff in myself. Yeah.
Hmm. Great point there. Great point. We touched briefly about using public Wi-Fi's.
Oh yeah. So that's another one. So Wi-Fi is a network, and everybody can belong to the network if they let them. Hopefully, your home Wi-Fi, you have security on it. There should always be. You can tell because if you do a scan for Wi-Fi networks on your phone, yours should have a lock on it, or say secure or something like that, and you'll need a password to get into it. Uh,
Hmm.
Make sure that your home Wi-Fi is set to something called WPA2, at least. That's still kind of an old security protocol, but it's still fairly secure. They have a new one called WPA3. The problem with it is it doesn't work with things like Ring cameras and stuff yet. So if you have certain technology, they haven't upgraded to WPA3 yet. So I know Ring specifically, that it'll be a couple more years, according to their website. But yeah, but Wi-Fi, you go to an airport and it's great. I don't want to use my cellular data allotment, so here's a free Wi-Fi and I'm going to get on it. Basically, I could set up a Wi-Fi network just like a hotspot. I could be a bad guy and put one out and call it free airport Wi-Fi, and everything's going through there. I grab everything that you're doing and put it on my computer. You know, if you're transmitting a file or your banking information or your passwords and accounts, I can grab all of that and put that in. So be real careful about free Wi-Fi. You know, again, a way around it is to get what's called a virtual private network or a VPN. There are a number of, if you just Google VPN, there are a number of services. NordVPN is one. Last VPN, I think, is one. But there's a number of them out there that are, again, very reasonable. And what that does is, for those of you, I'm dating myself a little here, but if you remember the old 1960s TV show Get Smart, and they had the cone of silence where the two guys talked. This is your computer and this is the server. It puts a tunnel in there and it encrypts the information. So it's like a cone of silence. And so people can't see what's going on. So if you type in your password, it's encrypted, it goes straight through. Otherwise, if you're sitting in a room and it's just Wi-Fi and it's not encrypted, if you have software on your computer, I could log into that Wi-Fi and I can pretty much see what's going on around me. So be real careful. Starbucks is not the place to do your business. Yeah. So, and work from home. You have to be careful nowadays with work from home to make sure that your home Wi-Fi. When I was at the bank, I mean, it's part of the reason I have as much gray hair as I do is, you know, all of a sudden we were pretty secure inside the bank, but now all of a sudden everybody's working from home and they're working from places like Starbucks. And how do you keep places like that safe? You know, the devices. So, yeah, get a VPN for your Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Same goes for when you're in hotels, right? When they give you their free Wi-Fi.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere there's free Wi-Fi. Again, if it's in the hotels, I mean, I've been in hotels. It even tells you this is not secure. So think about what you're doing here, you know? So, yeah, I always use VPN if I have the need. And if for some reason it's not working, you know, airplanes, a lot of the Wi-Fi on aircraft, the service provider for the Wi-Fi in certain cases will not allow the use of a VPN. It interferes with their transmissions and things like that. And so, you know, there again, you have to trade off risk versus convenience. For me, I can wait, you know, I don't need to send that email right now. I can wait a couple hours till I land and get connected somewhere where I feel secure, you know. And if I need to work on the plane, I'll download the files I need before I go. So a little bit of planning. And if I forget, then I'll just, you know, basically enjoy the movie and the pretzels or whatever, you know, because the risk isn't worth it. It's when you're up in the plane with everybody else and they're all using the Wi-Fi, you have other protections like firewalls on your computer that most of the anti-malware provides a firewall and things like that. But it's best just to, you know, again, manage your risk. Don't be afraid of the risk, but manage the risk, be safe, and ask yourself, is this something I really need to do right now to, or should I protect myself?
Yeah. It's better to be safe than sorry later, right? Just to take that extra protection there.
Well, you know, here again, with the small businesses and the entrepreneurs and the old, you know, they're the ones that, you're going to get hurt. You don't have an IT department when your computer gets locked up. You don't have an IT department to take your locked up computer with ransomware on it to and say, go ahead and decrypt it or give me a new computer or whatever, And if you're not backing up and doing some other things, you could lose your business, So to me, it's just not worth that. I try to be more judicious in terms of what I bring with me and how I use it.
God, great, Scott. So, just going to touch a little bit on because one of the reasons I had the show was inspiring life journeys, because life is a journey just like travel. You journey through life, you have all those experiences, you learn them, and those experiences last you a lifetime. So I'm just quickly going to touch about your real true travel journeys that you had. I know you spent 7 years in Perth, and that must have been a great experience. Australia is beautiful there. But give me you've traveled a lot. I know we talked a little bit about your most recent travels, but out of all the places you've traveled, give me a couple of ones that you really loved the best and why you liked it so much.
Boy, I'll tell you, there's so many. So I've been very, very fortunate to be able to live and work all over the world with my career. So there's a lot of quote favorite places, but some of the ones I think we were just speaking before the show started. Last December actually went down to Antarctica. So, which was sort of a bucket list item for me because it's my 7th continent. But I also always just wanted to go. I wanted to see the penguins and the seals, and it's a stark place. It's starkly beautiful. It's starkly isolated, but just gorgeous. And again, you're in probably one of the last unspoiled places in the earth. So you have animals that don't know what we are and what we're capable of. So we don't represent a threat to them that they're aware of. So you have penguins walking up to you and seals that let you walk up to them and seals that also come after you. We were warned in a couple places, the fur seals, especially the males, they can be pretty aggressive and pretty territorial. So it's interesting being a human being and having to run from an animal that's going to come and bite you, So Antarctica was absolutely gorgeous. And then India to me is a very, very beautiful and exotic country. And a lot of rich history in India that a lot of Americans especially we're not that well versed in different cultures, but just tremendous cultures in different kingdoms that were in India. And there's actually another security story that I talk about in India. Outside of Hyderabad, there's a fort that was built back in the I don't know, 1700s or 1800s. I should get my date correct. But essentially the fort was impregnable and held people off for months and months and months, and basically was betrayed because one person let the invaders in one night. And so I talk about that just with insiders and how like one secret can basically bring down a kingdom. But India was incredible. Yeah. And then I lived in Sweden for a while, and that was for almost 2 years in Sweden. It wasn't supposed to be that long, but a beautiful country and wonderful. A lot of great experiences. I got to eat smoked reindeer heart, and I would say for people that travel, dive into the experience. You're probably not going to die from anything you eat or drink or whatever. Using obviously don't drink muddy water from a puddle. But,
yeah.
Most of the time, your hosts and things are not going to steer you the wrong way. And so again, be careful with the risks and things like that, because again, there's stuff our bodies aren't used to.
Yeah.
But dive into the culture. In Sweden, I got to do the sauna, where on an actual wood-fired sauna, and then you walk outside and you jump into water that still had ice in it because it was
Freezing.
yeah, and you know, maybe not the best idea, I guess, but I was a little bit younger at the time. I don't know if I would do it now, but great experiences. And I think the thing that was greatest about travel, Shanta, was realizing that people are a lot more alike. Human beings are
Hmm.
more alike than they are different. You know, we all have similar hopes and aspirations. We all love our families. We all want to do well. You know, people really are alike. It's just cultural. There's cultural filters that we misinterpret, and then that creates a miscommunication,
Right.
or we basically layer behavior and intent, especially intent, on certain behaviors, and that may not be what's going on at all, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's been wonderful to be able to have those opportunities.
That's great that you've been able to spend some period of time in each of those places to really get to know them. That's beautiful. Since you've been to all 7 continents, that's that's awesome. What is one place that you haven't been to that you would like to visit, and why?
So that's I have my little bucket list of things, but probably the next big trip will be a safari in Africa.
Mm,
So that's always been out there to go. You know, the wild places are getting fewer as we expand and things like that. And so
yeah.
I think it would be really. It's always been an interest of mine to kind of go out into the bush and see the wild animals in their native habitat. Although a lot of them aren't even native anymore; they're reserves. But but it's, you know, the best that we can get. But just see how magnificent the animals are in their.
Hmm.
So
And
that'll
then,
probably be the next big one. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, just watching them in their natural habitat is an experience. I love any place that has, the wildlife or just the nature. So those are some of my favorite places too, as well, where you can just get lost in the beauty of the place.
absolutely. And it's, you know, a couple of years ago, a couple of summers ago, I fulfilled a promise I made to myself when I was in college, and that was to go down the Grand Canyon in a raft.
Mhm.
So I went with a rafting company. And, you know, there again, once you start unplugging from the technology and from the emails and everything, because there's no cell phone signals down there. So
Mhm.
11 days of, you know, we had to learn how to talk to each other and how to entertain each other and how not to be angry with each other, you know. And so it was a great adventure, but you look up and you just realize, and in Antarctica too, you know, you just realize kind of how wonderful the world is, and when you take the time to just kind of slow down and watch it, you know, and because of our life and the demands that we have with work and family and a lot of other things, it's hard to do, you know.
Mhm.
But you know, my suggestion, I guess, I would take is for people, and I try to tell my nephews this is unplug. You know, just go, just be somewhere and look at the sky. Watch the waves. You know, look for some place where there's animals and watch them. You know,
Mhm.
because that's really what it's all about. The all the rest of it is it's gonna come and go, and it's gonna go by so fast. You know, and I think the millennial generation, I think they're a little more attuned to experiences and how important they are than
Yeah.
my generation, than the boomers. You know, we were all about career and you know, going as fast as we can,
Mhm.
climbing the ladder and things like that. And I think we might have missed out on some things that were, you know, certainly in my life I'm trying to catch up on. And I think the younger generations have realized that the experiences matter as well.
Yeah, yeah, they do. They are looking at more into experiences and not so much of as of material things that they need,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? The memories that they carry on. One of the things I always kind of talk to my, to even for younger kids, when you're giving them a gift, they get the gift, they play with it a little while, and they throw it away. But if you create and give them some experiences, they'll remember that for a lifetime than what they got in a little box.
Absolutely. Yep. I absolutely agree, Shanta.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yes, Scott. Scott, thank you so much. But before we wrap up, I'm going to put out over here as how people can reach you. And if you want to go ahead and give just a couple of tips for people that we highlight what we've talked and say, these are the things that, to
Sure.
remember, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
But here's how you can reach Scott. So you can go to scottschneiderspeaker.com and you can reach out to him. And he'd love to talk to you and help you be cyber secure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine. Yeah, so we kind of talked about just, slow down, ask questions, be skeptical, don't be helpful, and I know that sounds bad, but that's probably the biggest thing is being skeptical of the phishing, the vishing, the smishing. Don't click on links. Don't give information out to people. You can always hang up and call if it's important. They'll, someone will get in touch with you. They're not going to throw you in jail, the IRS or someone else. So just slow down, ask questions, don't send money, don't give out personal information. The making sure that your devices are protected with any malware and things like that. That's so important. Don't use old technology, make sure that you're updating your computer because there's hardware that the actual computers themselves and stuff like that changes. The software definitely changes, and so make sure those get updated, not just your antivirus, but also your software, your apps on your phone. Once a year, I go through and re-download all of my apps because the apps might have changed. It's just software. Let's see, Wi-Fi. Don't use public Wi-Fi. Put off things if you can put things off to where you're secure. With anti-malware, you're going to have firewalls, but think about VPNs and things like that. We didn't talk much about passwords, but get a password manager. There's a few of them out there. And the way they work is they kind of remember your password for you. They actually generate passwords. All of my passwords are at least, anywhere from 16 to 20 characters long. And I don't know what any of them are because the password manager handles that for me. But I log into that. I have one passphrase, very long one that I remember, and that's used. But don't reuse passwords. Don't use, especially for those of you that work for companies, don't use your personal passwords at the company and don't use company passwords for your personal stuff. But we didn't really talk about passwords, but that's kind of what I would do. Backups, we talked about. You should always do backups and make sure that your stuff is safe. And then use common sense when you're at conferences and stuff like that. Don't leave your computer, your cell phone, any of that behind. If you're on an airplane, don't put your cell phone in the pocket and go use the restroom, and then come back. Make sure you keep it on you or tucked away somewhere. For ladies, your purse, or for guys, your backpack or whatever. But don't leave it in the seat pocket while you go do things, because it only takes a minute or two to mess around with someone's phone. So
yeah. Thank you, Scott. And thank you for touching on the password. I had it on to talk to you about it, but you had so many interesting things that I kind of overlooked that piece of it, but that's an important thing. So if you all want to get more information about any of these things that Scott has talked, or what's the best password manager to use, or anything that he can help you with, reach out to him at scottschneiderspeaker.com, and he'd love to connect with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Shanta, for the opportunity. Everybody stay safe out there.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and until next week when we have another show of inspiring life journeys, here's just a little short clip to close it out.